Teachers, what's the darkest thing you've seen from a student? Had a student in my class as a sophomore. Every morning her junior year she would come in and chat in the morning. One day out of the blue it stopped. In fact, she wasn't at school at all anymore. Fast forward 3 months, she shows up and looks broken. I ask her what's going on. After quite a bit of hesitation, she tells me that she went to a party and was DD. No alcohol in her system. However, she woke up the next morning and couldn't remember a thing about the previous night. A couple weeks later, she finds out she is pregnant. She was a virgin before that night. Roofied and raped. She had only told her counselor and now me. I haven't had a chance to talk to her due to COVID. Her outlook and demeanor was night and day before and after that party. Our school had a selective mute kid that graduated last year. Kids were calling him Nquat, fish boy. It turns out he was buying fish and killing them in various ways on Instagram based on people's requests in the comments. In elementary school we had a kid with a severe peanut allergy and a teacher caught some kids rubbing peanut butter on the opening of his water bottle. We also had a kid who could describe in detail about how to prepare heroin. Kid seemed down and I asked him to please tell me what was wrong. And quote, not today, but when you're ready and quote. I was his last class of the day and he promised he would. End of the year comes and he told me his brother killed himself. He said he thought about the same many times but always remembered that he had made me a promise. I made him promise to call me if he ever thought he might again and he promised me again. He's doing amazingly well and is about to graduate from college. I'm a teacher. A student saw one of my former co-teachers at some point with his wife and thought she was hot, and my co-teacher took advantage of this to get the student to secretly record his sister taking showers and shit. He offered videos of his wife performing sexual acts on / with him to the student in exchange. He finally got caught when the student blackmailed the teacher into trying to get the wife to fuck him, and when he proposed it to his wife, she called the cops. What is absolutely worth the money? A good backpack. My mom always got me cheap backpacks in school, and they'd always break about 3/4 of the way through the school year. Sophomore year of high school I finally convinced her to pull the trigger on a mid-range JanSport daypack. Yeah, it was literally 5 times as expensive as any other backpack she'd ever bought me. But it lasted the rest of high school, and community college, and the 2 years at regular university for my bachelor's, and a year and a half of graduate school. And I have used it at least a few times a year since for business trips since. And it's still perfectly usable, if getting a bit ratty and faded now. Can't say this enough, a properly supportive office, desk chair. Worth every penny. A good mattress. 20 years ago I bought a used 1991 Toyota with 60k miles for cheap, still running and just won't die. Edit. It is a 4-cylinder truck. I change the oil myself. I use Mobil 1 synthetic oil. It was purchased from the original owner for $4,200 when it was 9 years old. A good knife for the kitchen. Dash cam. They can really save your ass. Speaking of, I need to get me a new one. What is something about your country you're actually really proud of? We've got the only birds in the world that have won a war against humans. 60% of the world's polar bears live in Canada. I don't know why, but I'm proud of that. Our ability to control water. The work the Dutch put in to make this land livable with the dam systems earns my respect. Switzerland. That cheese that aged for 5 years in a cave. I'm from Iceland and I have to say that I'm super proud of its nature. I mean, it's definitely special and so unique. Not to brag, but people in my hometown in Serbia have the ability to suck the alcohol out of the deodorant. What supervillain has the most logical reason to be evil? I always liked Magneto's backstory, a mutant Jewish boy being orphaned at a Nazi death camp, learning to distrust authority, and wanting to forcibly prevent a similar Holocaust against mutant kind. A sympathetic villain. Dr. Doom. He's peered into the futures of many different Earths, and the only world that was free from want and need was the future where he ruled. He's convinced if he is not in control, then humanity will suffer and fall apart. Sauron from the Marvel Universe. He has complete control over biological systems and used his power to turn people into dinosaurs. Spider-Man confronted him and asked why Sauron didn't use his power to cure cancer, and he gave the greatest, most moving villain speech in history, and quote, "I don't want to cure cancer, I want to turn people into dinosaurs!" End quote. If we could consider him a supervillain instead of a minor inconvenience, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Neither of his parents showed up to his birth. He was raised by ocelots, forced to be a garden gnome, forced to wear girl clothes to school, and he just wanted to be good at kickball. But the only reason he's trying to take over the tri-state area is because of a sarcastic comment on a terrible date with Linda Flynn. Dracula from Castlevania. They killed his one true love, then spat on her memory by calling her a witch. He went way too far with his revenge, but I can see why he did the things he did. Female inmates. How do you think your prison experience was different from what you have heard about male prisoners' experiences? Okay, as apparently the only actual female prison inmate on Reddit, it is much different than male prison. I was in prison for 2.5 months last year. My ex was in prison for 16 months. In women's prison, while there is still violence, there's less violence, and it's usually over girlfriends. Men's prison has major race gang activity, women's prison really doesn't. If anyone acts in a racist way, they're getting the shit knocked out of them. Rapists and child abusers get the fuck knocked out of them in both male and female prisons. Absolutely nobody tolerates that shit. There's a lot more gay for the state type shit going on in women's prison, but for the women who are fully straight and not interested, that's mostly respected. Yeah, you'll still have some disrespectful hoes acting like men, hitting on you and trying to convince you to give them a chance, but as long as you're firm about your boundaries and not being interested, they'll back off. Women are just as catty in prison as they are outside of it, but it's a little worse, because almost everyone that's in prison has had some kind of trauma/abuse in their past that affects their mental health and makes them act in ridiculous ways, which is how they ended up in prison in the first place. There are a lot of trans men and women in there, and I don't really know how it differs from men's prison. I didn't ask the ex if there were any trans women there, but at least in women's prison they didn't keep us separate and everyone was completely cool with it. Nobody got harassed. Honestly, it was really chill. You just have to be respectful of other people and their property, but also not trust anyone and keep your shit locked up because you're in prison. Edited to add, I've already directly thanked the kind anonymous people who gifted gold and dudes, but I just want to say thank you to everyone who has responded and been so incredibly kind and not horribly judgmental. I almost deleted my comment immediately after submitting it, but I'm so glad I didn't. I've appreciated the questions from people just trying to learn more and understand better. I'm grateful to my fellow Excans who have given me hope. My heart goes out to anyone who has been in the system or had loved ones who have. I appreciate the COs in here who treat the inmates like human beings. I guess the main thing I want to say is, our judicial system, USA, is very flawed and needs some work. I don't want to get political because I hate politics, but what I will say is our system needs reform. I don't know exactly how, I don't know what's possible, but it's fucked up as is and needs a reboot. I fucked up and accepted responsibility for my actions, but there are so many people in prison who just need better mental health care. There are just a lot of traumatized, hurting people out there making dumb mistakes when all they need is a little help. Just try and have a little empathy and compassion for your fellow idiots. I spent 9 months inside a women's county jail. Never went to prison. The women constantly walked around and talked to each other. I heard co's and volunteers that this never happens in the men's units. There are no men walking the yard laps, chit-chatting. They sit. They gamble commissary over card games. That's it. Most of the commissary they get they don't even eat. Just gamble with it. In the women's unit, we also made each other jailhouse birthday cakes and cards and passed it around for everyone to sign. I heard this doesn't happen in the men's unit. Makes sense. Psychiatrists of Reddit, what was the most obvious attempt to fake insanity you've seen? A resident's face fell quite dramatically when I informed them the attention in ADHD doesn't mean you and what, like attention and what. Did a psych placement as a student and was in a discharge meeting with this homeless guy. He was brought into the hospital because police had been called as he was threatening to jump off a bridge. He claimed depression and suicidal thoughts, which it was found out not to be. So he said he was hearing voices, which was also not true. Dude was just desperate to have shelter and food. Sad case. Sorry for tangent, but has anyone else heard someone say and what? My mother, my friend was diagnosed as clinically insane and what? I used to hear it all the time in high school, it was trendy. I remember talking to a guy in my year about how I thought I
subscribe.
He said it.
Mr. B6000, oh, Mr. B6000, yeah, you know his name. He changed it once or twice, but I think it's here to stay.